Today, I'm going to show you how to make tender and juicy meatballs. Plus, I've got a delicious tomato sauce that complements the beef. It's a restaurant quality dish inspired by my husband's Italian grandmother. Grandma Rose was a very busy woman and she would make meatballs even on the weekdays. So she recommended using high quality Italian canned tomato products. I like to use crushed tomatoes because as it simmers down, it's gonna create a nice thick consistency that's gonna cling onto the noodles. I also use tomato paste, which is going to add a hint of sweetness and thickness to the sauce. To add a little bit of freshness and aromatics to the sauce, I'm going to use onions and fresh garlic. Just trim off the ends of the onion, peel off that papery skin. And we want to mince the onions so that you don't get too big of chunks in the sauce. We need a half a cup of minced onions. I'm going to mince the garlic, about 2 teaspoons or about 3 cloves. Just cut off the ends and then give a light little smash. Peel off that skin. The onions and garlic not only smell good when they hit the hot oil, but they're also rich in glutamates, which is going to enhance the savory flavor of the meatballs. Set the oven rack to the lower middle position. Heat the oven to broil. In a large pot or Dutch oven, heat a 1/4 cup of olive oil over medium-low heat. Once hot, add a half a cup of minced onion and 2 teaspoons minced garlic. Sauté until the onions are translucent, about 3 minutes. Stir in 6 ounces of tomato paste and cook for 1 minute. Stir in 7 cups or 56 ounces of crushed tomatoes, 2 teaspoons kosher salt, and a half teaspoon black pepper. Ooh, this is starting to smell good already. I'm going to let the sauce simmer for about 30 minutes, making sure that I stir it occasionally because you're gonna get some little pockets of air that bubble up. But once we add the meatballs into the sauce, it's going to have a lot of juices and flavor that's gonna make the sauce even better and have a ton of dimension. But in the meanwhile, we're gonna go make the meatballs. For the meatballs, I like to use 80 to 90% lean ground beef, which is gonna give you 10 to 20% of fat, which is gonna add a ton of flavor. The first thing we're going to do is add 2 large eggs, 1 cup of breadcrumbs, a half a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese, a half a cup of finely minced onion, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. And I like to combine this all with my hands so that I could really get everything mixed in really well, and I can see and feel the consistency change. While I'm mixing the meatball mixture, the starches in the breadcrumbs are starting to get hydrated, creating a starchy paste, which we call a panade. As the panade cooks, the starches are going to start to swell and create this gel-like matrix that's going to lock in all of that flavor and juices into the meatball and prevent the meatballs from shrinking too much. Everything looks evenly mixed. I think we're ready to shape them now. I have a large baking sheet that I've lined with foil and just lightly greased with some olive oil to prevent the meatballs from sticking when I broil them. So I like to use about a 1/3 cup measuring cup or about 3 ounces in size of meat. You want to go for the shape of about an egg and just roll it into a ball. This meatball recipe is very customizable. If you want, you could use a different mixture of meats like ground beef, veal, and pork together, which is very traditional for Italian recipes. Or you could use ground chicken or turkey if you want a leaner meatball. Also, if you have some fresh herbs like parsley, oregano, or basil, you can chop those up and add them in too. Typically, I could get about 14 to 15 large meatballs. And if I have some extra ground beef mixture, I'll just see which ones look a bit smaller and add some meat back to it. These are ready. Now we're going to go brown them under the broiler. Broil the meatballs until the surface is browned, about 10 to 12 minutes. Turn over and cook for an additional 2 to 3 minutes to lightly brown the other side. Wow, these look amazing. I broiled the meatballs for about 10 to 12 minutes until the surface was golden brown. It's going to enhance the flavor on the surface due to Maillard browning, creating hundreds of new flavors. Also, it's going to create this crust that sets the structure. If I didn't broil the meatballs and added them in raw, it's going to become mushy and fall apart. I'm going to flip the meatballs over so that we can lightly brown the other sides as well for about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to pop them back into the oven. Slowly simmering the meatballs in the acidic tomato sauce is going to tenderize any of those tough connective tissues in the beef, making for extremely tender bites. We're going to simmer it for about an hour and a half over low heat, making sure that we stir it about every 20 minutes. I'm going to put the lid on slightly ajar, and I'll be back to check in. The trick to restaurant quality pasta is that you make sure you season the water generously with salt. The salt is going to dissolve, and when the starches swell in the pasta, absorb that water, it's going to have a nice savory taste. In a large pot, add 4 quarts of water and bring it to a boil over high heat. Stir in 1 tablespoon of kosher salt until dissolved. Add 1 pound of pasta. The starches on the surface of the pasta are going to be released, and it's going to cause those noodles to stick to the side of the pot and to each other. So throughout the cooking process, make sure you check in and stir it occasionally. I like to cook the pasta until it's al dente, so it's soft on the outside but has a little bit of a firm bite on the inside. This looks ready. It's time to drain. Oh, the meatballs look good. They're ready. I made sure to stir every 20 minutes so that the sauce doesn't get burnt on the bottom of the pot. And the sauce is pretty thick, so if you want a thinner consistency, add about a tablespoon of water at a time, stir, just make sure you get to that desired thickness, and then make sure you taste the sauce and season with a little bit more salt and pepper if you'd like. Okay, it's time to plate up. I've added the sauce to the spaghetti noodles so that they're nice and coated and don't stick together. Then I'm gonna add some meatballs on top, and then I garnish with some freshly chopped basil, and of course, a little bit more Parmesan cheese. I hope you enjoyed learning the science behind meatballs, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up. It means a lot when you do. And if you're craving more Italian food, check out my recipe right here for meat lasagna. It's our family favorite. See you in the next video.